Steel Curtain Network.
¡Por Jorgito! ¡Goes down! Najee Harris! DJ Watt!
What is up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to a Steel Curtain Network post-game show. The Steelers win in the regular season week 1. They beat the Atlanta Falcons 18-10 in what we're calling a field goal festival, but it was a beautiful win for a lot of reasons. I'm Jeff Hartman. Joining me, as always, Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. Dave, what's up?
Not too much, Jeff. Had some nice wagers on that game. Some worked out great. Some of them, the big parlays, not as much, but more than anything, just having that. I can't wait for my brother to breathe in on Tuesday night. That's what I can't wait for. It's really nice to get that victory.
Absolutely. Bryan Davis, what's going on?
Oh, gentlemen, I am so elated. I told you on Thursday night, I was listening to a lot of Atlanta podcasts on how cocky and how dismissive they were of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I love it. But I have an announcement to make that Jeff and Dave do not know about. As you can see, I'm wearing the home whites because that's what I'm doing.
I thought your team was playing right now. That's why we got going so late.
I was wearing Joey Porter Jr., but guys, I don't know if you can see this here. This is the belt from the new pants that I just bought.
Oh my gosh.
Size 50. If anybody has a media guide from the 2004 season that could let me know who originally wore 69 in the preseason, I'm wearing that man's pants, and size 50 fits a whole lot better. And the women in my household, especially my son, thinks they're hilarious. The women think they're just gross. But they got us the win.
Hey. A win's a win. Absolutely, a win is a win. The Steelers find a way to win on the road in week 1. It's a tough test to do. And the Steelers, I'm going to say this is a beautiful win. And anyone that's out there complaining about style points hasn't been paying attention since, 2020? Really, this was kind of like a right in Mike Tomlin's wheelhouse. I do want to go through, everyone gives their knee-jerk reactions as we always start off the show. So Dave, we'll go with you. What's your knee-jerk reaction?
Knee-jerk reaction is I don't know how it would have played out otherwise, but thank you, Atlanta Falcons, for just choosing not to play any of your players in the preseason. It looked like it. Especially going up against a top-notch, perhaps one of the best, if not the best defenses in the NFL, with the best defensive player in the NFL. So that was a really tall task for them to do, and that's why you have snaps going off motion men and things of that nature. But, man, the Steelers' defense, they came to play. That was one fluky drive that scored a touchdown. Other than that, man, oh, man, the defense got it done.
What was the play before the touchdown? Oh, it was TJ Watt's strip sack that got called offsides. We'll get to the officiating.
Yeah.
Let's go to Bryan Davis. Dave,
his other crushing play where the ball is just floating in the air for forever. They catch it.
Yeah. Bryan, what's your knee-jerk reaction?
It's the narrative. We have heard all season long with this wide receiver room, with the patchwork offensive line, with the young offensive line, with everything on offense, and with Arthur Smith in there, they're going to be very heavy on the run, and they're going to turn around and have to rely on defense. And that's exactly what you got from this game. And I know the fan narrative is going to be, well, the defense cannot bail you out every single week. And of course, yes, and we know that. But my knee-jerk reaction is this team on offense, even with Justin Fields, who was not your number one choice, not your QB1 going into the season on the depth chart, looks a whole lot better than a Kenny Pickett-led offense and a Mitch Trubisky-led offense. And really, maybe in a couple weeks, a Mason Rudolph-led Pittsburgh offense.
So my knee-jerk reaction is just that this is a game where, I talked to Scott Kennedy, who covers the Falcons. I was on another Falcons podcast, and Scott actually sent me a text because I have his personal phone number. That's neither here nor there. He's a part of Fans First Sports Network. And he said, this is what I was talking about, Jeff. They are falconing this game up because he talked about, that's what he said. He goes, down here, we use that as multiple grammatical nouns, adjectives, verbs. Like falconing is the thing, but they're doing a falcon. They're screwing it up. Especially with the fumble, when the motion man hits the ball, TJ Watt recovers. That's what he was referring to. And it's one of those things where it's like, this is exactly what he was talking about. But you know what? Good teams find a way to win. The Steelers might not be labeled a good team after week 1, not after 6 Chris Boswell field goals, but you know what? My knee-jerk reaction really is thank God for Chris Boswell. That's what I'm going to say. Thank God for Chris Boswell. That dude is amazing. And we have some super chats to get to here before we get started with the show. Sean Manahan gives us $5 and says, Justin Fields looked like a quarterback 1, maybe not the quarterback 1. We will be talking about Justin Fields here shortly and the decision the Steelers made to start him with Russell Wilson being a little banged up. Then we go to Brandon Diaz, $1.99. He said the refs apologized to TJ. They know they suck. LOL. TJ Watt said that he did talk to the officials about it, and they hopefully figured out what was wrong. He said, it sucks when you do all this studying and you find a nugget. That's what he called it, a golden nugget. That's what he said in the post-game press conference today, where he has a tell of exactly when they're going to snap the ball, and he gets it, and he does it perfectly, and they call him for offside. So I could see how he was pissed off. But we always start on the offensive side of the ball, not on the defensive side of the ball. So we break this thing down like we always do. Offense, defense, and even some special teams. I do want to let's talk about injuries quickly. Had someone in the live chat say, I hope Bill Burr, they're referring to Cameron Johnson, who looks a lot like comedian Bill Burr, saying he hope it's not too serious. Mike Tomlin said in the post-game press conference that it was a quote-unquote serious injury. Now, that tells me, like, if Mike Tomlin is just saying, if he says it's a serious or significant injury, that's typically a season-ending thing. And if he's willing to say that before he gets any type of further evaluation, it just really sucks that the Steelers' first free agent signing this offseason was their punter, and they were proud of that guy. Mike Tomlin openly said to fans, hey, go check out the punter. Look at our new guy. Doesn't even get through one game. Dave, any thoughts on Cameron Johnson's injury?
Yeah, that was tough. And that was also tough to have that penalty called the way it was when you knew that he was going down for injury. There were a lot of other really bad and questionable calls. That one, I could see why they called it that way. It just didn't where they didn't call it roughing. They called it that he got thrown into him. That was just kind of sucky to kind of throw it on top of there and say, oh, now come punt without your punter. But luckily Boss stepped up and did well there. But yeah, I have a feeling the Steelers will be in need of another punter for next Sunday.
Bryan, any thoughts on Cameron Johnson's injury?
It was brutal. And I did the Mike Tomlin post-game press conference recap that you can hear after you check out this show here on the Fans First Sports Network. And it almost felt like he was doing a requiem and a tribute to him, which means that he's gone for the year. Now, I just have to correct something on the live chat here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are showing Jake Carmadia as their punter. So somebody mentioned that he is the punter. So I looked up Presley Harvin. He's a free agent. He's listed as a free agent, but also music to everybody's ears but Jeff Hartman. Jordan Berry is probably going to be.
I would take Jordan Berry over Big Press.
No. If Johnston's not out for the season, let's say he's only out, even 4 to 8 games. That's the time of year that Harvin can actually punt before it gets cold. So.
But no, devastating injury because he was booming punts today, and he was booming them all preseason, and it just looked like a marriage made in heaven, and I hope he can come back.
Yeah. So, and then the only other injury, Darius Rush is being evaluated for a concussion. Mike Tomlin said it was at the very end of the game, so he doesn't know the results of those evaluations. We'll find out more on Tuesday during his press conference. Other than that, everyone that got injured or banged up and went into the blue tent, they were able to be cleared and come back, like Dante Jackson and Joey Porter Jr. Heath Davis gives us $2. Thank you very much, Heath. He said we got better every drive. Hopefully that continues. I agree with that. I would agree with that sentiment. And let's start off, like we always say, talking about the quarterbacks. Justin Fields, who gets the start. He goes 17 of 23 for 156 yards, a 6.8 yard average, no touchdowns, but no interceptions, 2 sacks for 23 yards. He did have 1 fumble. That was the first offensive snap for the Steelers, and a 91.9 rating. We'll talk about his running here in a second, but Dave, what did you think about Justin Fields' first start as the starting quarterback for the Steelers?
Well, they didn't have him throw the ball deep early. They really tried to let him get settled in. There was the mean, the first deep shot they took was the awful offensive pass interference, which I'm sure we can talk about that more later. But then he had the nice hookup with George Pickens right before the half, another one in the second half. When it came to just passing the ball, the biggest thing I have to say is that he was a little shaky early, but he didn't make, kind of like a poor decision in there to create a turnover. I think he took care of the football from the passing standpoint, meaning holding on to it, even if he was taking a sack and not putting it out there for the other team to intercept it. So to me, that's what I wanted from Justin Fields more in this game, especially with him not preparing all week to be the starter, to just be able to come in and say, hey, do your thing. Let's not see that, floor level stuff, that the problem that you're worried about with Justin Fields having issues. Keep it in the middle. You don't have to be the superstar. And to me, I would say he did exactly what the Steelers wanted, which was good enough.
Yeah. Brian, what was your take on Justin Fields?
Yeah, Dave, you said shaky. I was going to say nervous because I think Justin Fields is playing for his next contract in his football life right now. Not that he's going to be out of the league, because he's not, but he is playing for his early legacy right now, and he really needs to stick in Pittsburgh. And maybe he's playing for his Pittsburgh football life because he knows that somebody's might get a contract, or if they both suck, nobody's getting a contract, but he knows he's got to play and play well. And somebody told me once, play hard was a big deal. So I was going to dust that one off as well.
Nice.
But
play hard, man, play hard.
But if you look at elevation, and if you looked at a graph here, it kept on climbing. So it was much like the yodeler on The Price is Right, where there was elevation.
Yeah.
And it kept on going. And there's a deep ball in Pittsburgh, even with Justin Fields. So there was no deep ball last year.
Yeah.
I mean, you might say Mitch had a little bit of not Mitch, Mason might have had a little bit of a deep ball, but no, I felt, I was feeling confident, and we'll talk about it more in the receivers, but he had guys helping him out too.
Dave, do me a favor. The last drive in the second quarter, which resulted in the Steelers field goal, how much time was left when that started? Just out of curiosity.
Okay, how much time was left?
I thought it was like 38 seconds.
It was in the 30. Hold on, I'm trying to load it up there where they got that. There was 32 seconds remaining when they got that ball.
Okay, 32 seconds.
32.
This is all I wanted to see about Justin Fields, but also about Mike Tomlin and how he feels about Justin Fields as his quarterback. So you saw a lot of the ebb and flow of the game. You could kind of predict, okay, when they get certain areas, they're running on 2nd and 19 because they're settling for a field goal. Look, let's just keep gaining a couple yards here, there, and Boswell will kick a field goal.
Yeah.
But then they get the ball with 32 seconds left. Now, let's rewind it. I want to ask you guys a question. In the last 2 seasons, regardless of who was quarterback, Rudolph, Pickett, or Trubisky, the Steelers get the ball back with 32 seconds left. They're trailing at the time 10-6. What do they do, Dave? They take a knee. Brian, do you agree?
Yes. If you want to go to Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the Steelers were the knights that said knee all the time. To end.
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly. So you guys are nailing my point up. So, but that was like, okay, are they just going to have Justin Fields just kneel this thing out? No. Completion to Calvin Austin. Should have called a timeout. They didn't. That's neither here nor there. We'll talk about clock management in a second. They get on the ball. They eventually throw, I think, a pass to Pat Freiermuth. After that, he gets out of bounds, stops the clock. And then he goes deep and finds Pickens. I'm like, wow, like they're giving this guy a really long leash in a close game where they're getting the ball in the second half. They started with the ball the third quarter. That told me a lot about how the Steelers,
that's a really good point,
Mike Tomlin, the offensive coordinator, how they feel and how they trust Justin Fields. So what you want to say about your own personal thoughts on Fields, that's what they think. And that was like, to me, that was like the perfect example of, wow, this is really different than the first round pick they had in the 2022 draft, the guy they got in free agency in Mitch Trubisky, and then the guy that they picked and kept around for all those years in Mason Rudolph. I thought Justin Fields warmed to the task as the game went on. I feel like he got comfortable. I agree with Bryan. Jitters is what came to mind when I think about how he was playing. I think Arthur Smith got a little bit more comfortable with what he's doing, what he does best. I got to ask the question, though, guys. Who do you start next week? If everyone's healthy, who do you start next week, Dave?
That's above my pay grade.
Going back to Denver. What about you, Bryan?
Yeah, no, I mean, Russ would have to be 100%.
Yeah.
Russ would have to be 100%. If he's anything less than that, you go with Fields again.
Okay. Bryan?
Mike Tomlin said he was going to save all the cute stuff for Tuesday, but
yeah,
because I know Brooke asked the question.
Yes, she did.
Yeah,
and anybody else asking the question, you might have gotten something, but probably not. but you know, I think you are in an era right now, and we saw it last year when Kenny Pickett was healthy enough to come back at the end, that they want to go with a hot hand. And I almost feel that they feel that they can build on this, but you have nobody's afraid to Wally Pipp anybody anymore. And if you don't know who Wally Pipp is, check out Pride of the Yankees and Lou Gehrig and all that stuff. But I find it hard to believe that they're not going to give Russ Wilson the start in Denver because of that, and because he did everything he could traveling with the team, battling. I have a feeling that behind closed doors there was some colorful language like, "Coach, I can do it. Let me do it. Let me do it. Let me do it. Let me do it." No, we can't do it, Russ. You're not 100%. So I have a feeling that this early on in the season that they have no problem going back to Russ and doing it. I think they're going to have packages for Fields, but they could feel very confident in an 11th hour switch like they had here this week. So I think they're in a good situation. And one thing about Russ, it's nice to know that you have another coach on the field, a cheerleader, a supporter. It's on the sidelines. He has been nothing but supportive, and Mike Tomlin brought that up as well. But I think it's going to be a favor to Russ to give him the start and give him a shot.
I mean, the Steelers have an out if they want to roll with Fields again, and they could say that, Russell Wilson's his calf just isn't responding well, and all of a sudden Russell Wilson doesn't have media availability that week. They could definitely roll with this if they want, but the whole Denver Broncos thing does play a role. Let's get to some super chats before we move on with the offense. Faceless Man gives us $18.10. So 1-0 and leading the division. Arthur did a great job of scheming Pickens open. Wish we had a touchdown, but excited more than not for the season after today. Here we go. And 18 to 10. Thank you, Faceless Man, for the tip. We do appreciate it. We're going to be talking about GP here shortly. Let's get to Greg S. Gives us $10. He said, Boz God, game MVP. Is it too early to call TJ for the NFL MVP? The dude impacts games more than anyone I've ever seen, maybe second only to Troy Polamalu. And that's a Hall of Fame player. So take that for what it's worth. Dave, did you see anything from York Steel 3 who gave us $4.99? I don't know if you caught
Jeff,
anything.
there's so much in the live chat. I did not.
Well, thank you for the tip. Nonetheless, we appreciate it. And then lastly, Brandon Diaz gave us $1. Oh, you have one?
I don't know if it was the next one, but
Okay.
York Steel, one thing they did say was they would have knelt the ball. Whenever you asked that question, there might be another one. I'll see if I can find it.
All right. Brandon Diaz gives us $1.99. So Johnson's going to be out the season. Call Brad Wing. Yeah, that's a name that they brought him in last season. Did they not? Was it last season or the year before? I can't remember.
That was last year. Oh, here was the next one by York Steel 3.
There were only 2 receptions by receivers other than Pickens. Well, let's talk about that. That's a good segue, York Steel. Thank you very much. The receiving group, George Pickens, 6 catches, 85 yards, 7 targets. He had a long of 40. Pat Freiermuth, 4 catches for 27 yards. Jalen Warren, 2 catches for 13. And those are the only receivers that had more than 1 catch. Those with single-digit catches, Michael Pruitt, Najee Harris, Calvin Austin III, Darnell Washington got in the mix, and even Van
He's on
Jefferson.
pace to more than double his receptions from last year now.
All right, so 17 completions, 156 yards. The 133 total yards by Justin Fields is because of negative yardage, probably to George Pickens. But still, What did you think about the pass catchers, Dave?
Oh, the pass catchers. George Pickens is a guy that is going to get open, and you can get him the ball, and if you get it close to him, he'll be pretty good at catching it. That's great. The tight ends, I liked how they were doing some bootlegs and stuff with the tight ends. I'm expecting a little. I'm kind of surprised even that Cordell Patterson didn't get in on the passing game with everything with the running backs. I thought the running backs did fine with there, but would the Steelers be better off if they had another wide receiver that could be a bit of a threat along with George Pickens? Yes. Could that player still emerge from the Steelers? Yes. Could they still look outside the organization? Yes. But for what they did today, especially what Pickens was able to do out there, 6 receptions on 7 targets, and not counting the bogus, the bogus, what is it? What am I looking for? Offensive pass interference penalty. But I do have to say one thing, because this goes back to the pass catchers, Jeff. You got to let me. This was my 7-leg parlay for the Steelers game. Okay. Steelers on the money line. Check. Steelers scoring more than 16.5 points. Check. Holding Atlanta to under 21.5 points. Check. George Pickens, 60 receiving yards. Check. Najee Harris, 60 rushing yards. Check. The total going under 42.5. Check. That's 6. Number 7, 40-plus Pat Freiermuth receiving yards. He only had 27. For the second time in 3 years, I miss a huge parlay bet because Pat Freiermuth is exactly 13 yards short of what I needed him to do.
Hey, a guy I know named Pez says parlays are for suckers, just so you know.
Jeff, that was a $1 parlay that would have won me $136.
And I want to give Pez some love. Check out Pez's Picks. It's a podcast that I do on gambling. It's with a guy named Pez. I don't do the picks. He does the picks, unless we're talking golf, and then I handle some picks. But still, go check out Pez's Picks, part of Fans First Sports Network, wherever you get your podcast. But
I made it back in my other picks for the Steelers.
There you go. Bryan, what exactly did you think about the receiving core?
Were there any drops? I don't think there was a drop.
I think everyone that got targeted had a reception.
And so correct, yes. I felt pretty good about that. And there were 2 sacks, but I don't believe they were coverage sacks. So, I mean, we didn't see, this was such a weird game just for the fact that the Steelers were, the game plan that they were working on before Thursday might be completely different when you bring in Justin Fields. But they came off, they got the win. So were they, I don't want to say scrambling, but were they changing it up? And did they get out? Did they have the game plan that they were originally going to go in? But I don't think there was a problem with separation, which was the big worry during that entire Ayuk talk for the last 7 years. So, I just kind of feel that the receivers did their jobs, the pass catchers did their job, and they do have a superstar in Pickens. Somebody on the live chat said, God forbid if Pickens gets hurt, we're in trouble. Let's just hope he doesn't.
I knocked on wood, don't worry.
But you're in a situation here with, this seems like a team. And we have seen, let me use an old Tomlinism, because the new Tomlinism came up when things get thick. We heard that a lot. But an old Tomlinism was always cool in the gang. And you could always say that about, they always said that about Antonio Brown. And remember, the Steelers had a lot of situations in the past where they had Cole and the gang. And right now, Cole is George Pickens, number 14. And you got to help the gang, can help them out and create some beautiful music, Jeff and Dave.
Yeah. Gavin Anth, I want to bring this up since we're talking about pass catch. Is Roman Wilson coming back next week? He could. I mean, he practiced this week. He got a full week of work in.
Back on the field.
Yeah, so he absolutely could be in the mix for next week's game in Denver, and that could be some help. I don't know. We haven't seen him, so we haven't even seen him in preseason action. But Bryan, you brought up a good point, and this is about the changes that might have had to be made. I'm sorry, but people that want to say that the Steelers switching from Wilson to Fields was just oh, it's just we're going from one to the other. I could not say that. I can't disagree with that enough. I feel like when you look at Russell Wilson, even in the preseason, compared to what Justin Fields brings, and if they're putting a plan together for Russell Wilson, and then what was it, Thursday, that all of a sudden we find out that he was limited in practice and with the calf, and here we go, it might be switched up. You've planned for this game and this quarterback for all this time. Now, yes, Russell Wilson was named starter on what, Sunday or Tuesday, whatever, I don't know. They've been having this plan in place. Switching it at the last minute is not going to be easy for the coordinator. It's not going to be easy for the team, the quarterback, the receivers, the pass catchers. You saw in the second half, they started to adjust. It felt like everyone started to figure out, okay, this is what we can do to have success in the passing game. Was it tremendous? No. He wasn't throwing the ball downfield unless it was to George Pickens, which I'm fine with because George Pickens is really good at that. But I feel like if they were to stick with Fields, and I don't know if they're going to, and I'm not saying whether I want them to, but if they were to stick with Justin Fields in week 2 and have a full planning week of prep with him as the quarterback, I think it's going to look a little bit more comfortable for everyone involved, offensive line down to the pass catchers. But that's just my own opinion. I thought the pass catchers didn't do anything negative. Dave, what do you want?
That could be a great segue into where if we're going to talking about rushers, because the big thing, the thing that was completely different night and day by Justin Fields being in this game was that he was the second leading rusher on the team, and it was his. They could run the clock down even more on that. That was a really nice play design on that third down with Connor Hayward leading up in there for Justin Fields. You don't do that with Russell Wilson. No. Especially with Russell Wilson with how he's been throughout training camp with the calf. So to say it was going to be no different, you can't say that it would be no different because obviously the Steelers were having run plays with their quarterback that they wouldn't have had out there, in my opinion, if it was Russell Wilson.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the runners here and the rushing attack. This is a funny group here. You'll understand why. Najee Harris, 20 carries, 70 yards, a 3.5 average. Okay, that's kind of like the Mendoza line for me. You got to be above 3.5, but he gets there. A long run of 20 yards. Justin Fields, 14 carries for 57 yards, a 4.1 average. Cordero Patterson, 4 carries for 13. Jaylen Warren, only 2 carries for 7 yards. I still feel like they're easing him in with his hamstring. George Pickens, this is the funny part. 1 carry for minus 10 yards. Good job, George. For the Steelers total rushing of 137. I'm thinking back to my over-under here. 137 as a team for 41 carries, a 3.3 yard average. I think I had 120-something. Dave, what did you think about that? The running game?
Well, it's interesting because I said when we did the over-under, I said, I'm going to take the under unless it's Justin Fields playing. Because he's going to have he would be the difference. And my goodness, look at his yards.
Yeah.
That makes the difference there. So the biggest thing that the Steelers had now, did you have the fourth down play where it seemed like everyone wasn't on the same page? They tried to rush it too much, which probably wasn't the right idea. I like the idea of going for it there, but as soon as you don't get it, then you're like, oh, why did you do that? Yeah. So it's just one of those things. But that one, the Falcons were more ready for the play than the Steelers were. So there was that one. But to me, overall, Justin Fields adding that element with his legs made a huge difference in this game.
Yeah. Okay. Bryan, thoughts on the running game?
Well, I thought they got the job done, and I felt like they used the running attack, and a lot of the complaint over the last couple seasons, especially in the Canada era, was, they only have 15 carries in this game whatsoever. They only have 9 carries in this game. They used the running attack. I had no problem with, I know you mentioned 3.5 being the Mendoza line, but if you look at before there was a 17-game season, the 16-game season, the mark for 1,000-yard rusher was to get their 70 yards per game. Now, of course, you want some more, but Najee had some two runs that I just thought were gorgeous. They weren't huge, but they were big back runs, and I felt confident with Najee getting the ball more than ever in in this game. I agree with everything that you said about Jaylen Warren. But the guy that I was kind of impressed with here is, the 13 yards from Cordero Patterson, I think opens up a lot more to that game as well. To have, we've only seen a two-pronged rushing attack for the longest time, and to have a third guy in there that Arthur Smith trusts, that of course we can trust as a fan base, I think that's going to be pretty good. And we left him for dead just 3 weeks ago. So I'm kind of liking this running game. I thought on offense, everything that was done with everybody was enough to, as Mike Tomlin said, to be 1-0.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you guys said it well. The running game had its moments. With the offensive line, though, let's merge into that area now.
Yes.
I was kind of happy with the way they ran the ball. I thought they protected well. You're talking about Spencer Anderson, second-year player, 7th-round draft pick out of Maryland at left guard. His first NFL start. Zach Frazier, rookie, first NFL start in the regular season. James Daniels and Dan Moore are your veterans on the offensive line. I thought they did a pretty good job. I mean, I wasn't expecting them to be road graders and out there just opening, like the Red Sea parting type holes for the running backs. Dave, you're the offensive line guy. What'd you think about those guys?
Yeah, I was really concerned going up against this Atlanta defense because I'm going to be excited to see Atlanta next Monday night when week 2 kind of puts everything week 1 in perspective, to see if this Falcons defense is legit as what I thought it was going into this game. And I was expected, what's really going to mess up the Steelers more than anything is if they can't protect the quarterback and if they can't open up anything in the run game. And there were some people in here in the live chat saying there were no holes. Are you crazy? There were great holes a lot of the time. Now, was there a hole on every single running play? No, there was not. But they exceeded my expectations. Also, sorry, Big G, I know you don't like Dan Moore Jr., but he did not do a bad job in this game.
No, agree.
Honestly, the biggest mistake I saw came from James Daniels, who I do believe now is the first player in a regular season game to wear a Guardian cap.
Oh, you stole my thunder.
His special thing there going on there. But no, in all, I thought the offensive line, I was concerned about Spencer Anderson. Didn't notice him in a bad way. Didn't really have a lot of concern for Zach Frazier. And other than, the 2 snaps, who I'm not saying it's Frazier, I'm not saying it's Field. I couldn't get an idea for it. Those were gone after the first drive. So that's really nice. And there was times where I was seeing Zach Frazier. Where did I notice it the most? Trying to get downfield for a block and the defensive lineman having to hold him to keep him from going to the next level and getting the penalty called on. So I thought in all, the offensive line exceeded my expectations. Now, does that mean that they are a great NFL offensive line? I'm not ready to go there yet, but I thought they made a really nice step in the right direction today.
All right, I agree. Bryan, what do you think?
All right, let's go back a couple of years. The Steelers stunned the Buffalo Bills on opening day, but a lot of our post-game show was, but they got the win. But the next year they win, I believe 18-16 or something, or 20. They barely beat the Cincinnati Bengals, the defending AFC championship team 2 years ago. And what happens? There was like, oh yeah, well, they lost TJ. Yeah, but you can't continue to play like that. Today was a little different because you saw an offense to me that has a lot of warts, but now let's change that. They have a lot of pimples, but they're gonna clear up, and you see them clearing up, and you see, I think by mid-season, this offensive line that is young and pimply faced is going to be ready for the prom.
Sorry.
And only the way bad.
What an analogy. So for me, I had no expectations for this offensive line. I was just hoping for the best. They exceeded any expectations mentally I might have had. To me, the best news came. It came yesterday. It came on Saturday that Isaac Seumalo didn't go on injured reserve.
Yeah.
And so that tells me that he's going to be back in that 1 month time frame. Remember, he got injured 2 weeks ago. And so they're thinking like, okay, 4 to 5 weeks. So that's to me, the best news is that Sayamalu could be back way sooner than we thought. Because Dave, what is the minimum time missed if he goes on IR? 4 weeks?
4 games.
4 games. Okay. So,
so even if it's over the bye, it has
Correct.
to be games.
So
yes.
There's a reason they didn't put him on IR. If it was a long-term injury, they would have said, we're just going to shelve him and then we'll deal with it then. So, all right, let's take a break. When we come back from this break, we're going to talk about the defense. I'm going to complain about the officiating, and we'll probably find some other stuff to complain about. We'll be right back after this break. All right, Steeler fans, we are back, and we have some super chats to get through here. Kyle Smith gave us $5 and said, I didn't know the Steelers went out and signed Justin Pickett with the stat line. LOL, I'm trolling, kind of. Good win. Good to be back. I don't know, Kyle. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm just going to leave it at that. Let's go to Steelers Nation Australia. Our buddy from down under, Marky D, gives us $5 dingo. Who needs wide receiver 2 when you have Chris Boswell, our MVP? I'm sure Chris Boswell could probably run some routes if you needed him to. What the heck? He does everything else. Let's go to Tyler.
He didn't have to hold it and kick it on that on the last field goal.
A drop kick. Are those still legal? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
I think so.
Tyler W gives us $2. Says, say the name we didn't hear. Let's go, Frazier. Outside of the botch snap, like Dave said,
which I don't know that was even on him. I wasn't ready to.
Yeah, people on Twitter were saying, Jeff, whose fault was it? I don't know. On the T angles, you can't really tell. You got to really see what's going on. Who knows?
It's like we still can't tell if TJ Watt was really offsides. They never gave us a good shot.
They would never give us the shot, which tells me, Dave, that he was not offsides. Because if he was clearly offsides, you would have seen that shot over and over again. And let's go to the last one here. Steelers fan 69 gives us $10. He said, in honor of DraftKings, my wife was concerned about my Kenny Rogers obsession. She told me to call 1-800-GAMBLER. You've got to know when to hold him and know when to fold him. Steeler fan 69, this is the guy from my mailbag showing up in the live chat, giving the donations and the dad jokes. Thank you very much. I do want to thank our friends also at DraftKings. Make sure you go check out the DraftKings Pick 6 app. Use the code CURTAIN. This is good until the 19th of September. You bet $5, you get $50 in free bets. Again, the DraftKings Pick 6 app. Use the code CURTAIN. All right, let's talk defense here. The defense. Well, where do we start? How about Trent Jordan-Watt maybe? He had a pretty good game. His stat line was 4 tackles, 2 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits. But that doesn't really
fumble recovery.
And a fumble recovery, but that really doesn't paint the picture, does it? Like,
how many of them got taken away from him?
I mean, seriously, but let's talk about the pass rush since we're going down this road anyways. The Steelers sacked Kirk Cousins 2 times for 18 yards. TJ got 1. Montravius Adams got the other. There were 7 quarterback hits. And by the way, Kirk Cousins ended up with a 59 passer rating for those that are counting and scoring at home. What did you guys think about the pass rush here? Dave, we'll start with you.
Well, we could say this. Kirk Cousins had 1 less passing yard than Justin Fields. Yay. But when it comes to the pass rush, think about this. Because of the sacks that the Steelers had in the second half, the Falcons, you'll find this in my By the Numbers article tomorrow, but here's a little tease. The Falcons had 1 net passing yard in the second half of the game.
That's crazy. 1
net passing yard because they lost. They only had 19 yards passing and 18. They took away 18 in sacks. So what were you asking? Was this the pass rush?
Pass rush, yes.
Pass rush. I thought the pass rush did a really nice job the whole game. Coach Tomlin talked after the game about how it was. Blitzing Kirk Cousins doesn't always seem to work out. You have to get the rush at him with your guys. So they did, and outside of a few plays that then they had time and completed them, the pass rush was there all game, and my goodness, even sometimes hitting him and the ball floating up in the air for forever and them still catching it. Yeah. So the pass rush really is what set the tone for this defense.
Bryan, thoughts on the pass rush?
Yeah, first of all, Dave Schofield, the police are coming to your house for stealing my sunshine, stealing my thunder. But I even got I got my notes out, but so I'm not correcting you because you're exactly where I wanted to go. Mike Tomlin's exact words, though, we had to create pressure in non-blitz structure. So they know how well he handles the blitz. They still got to him. TJ victimized a guy. In fact, TJ just dominated that young man on the right-hand side that I don't think he's going to be allowed to hand out Halloween candy. That's how bad he abused this kid. TJ was just wonderful, but you had Montravius Adams. You had, I believe this is a part of the pass rush because he was in there, but it was a pass defense. But I'm going to bring up as a part of the pass rush, Mr. Highsmith coming in there and batting that ball away because he was rushing the passer. Cousins got that ball out pretty quick, and that could have gone for a lot. That was a game-saving play from a guy like Alex Highsmith as well, and it was a part of the pass rush too. Very happy with the pass rush. Be very happy with everything we saw, and I'm going to use it more in my final thoughts, but this is a defense that wasn't really together a lot in the preseason. And I thought they still came together a whole lot more, especially with the pass rush, for not being a complete unit, because I'm watching the Chiefs and Ravens. I'm watching Philadelphia and Green Bay, and I'm watching a lot of struggles on both sides of the ball because nobody played together 3 games before the season started.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do think it's funny, TJ Watt obviously has been a Steeler since 2017, and we've seen him do some crazy stuff, but it's still funny to watch other opponents have to adjust to him. And it was so funny when Kirk Cousins is getting ready to run a play and he sees TJ Watt there's no help on the right side. And so he's like motioning, like, hey, we got to get someone over here. And so he motions Kyle Pitts over there.
Well, it was an illegal formation.
It was, yeah.
And
still
ended up being.
But Kyle Pitts is like a receiver. Like that's like putting like a George Pickens over there to try and block TJ Watt. It's like, really? And you saw so many times where Pitts was supposed to chip, and TJ Watt's literally like just batting him away with one arm and then going after the tackle. He is that impressive. He really is that impressive. We're seeing a player at the peak of his prime, and it's fun to watch. But I thought the pass rush in general, Montravius Adams, good for him. He had a great camp. He had a great preseason. For him to get a sack was awesome. Larry Ogunjobi was in Kirk Cousins' face a lot. These don't go down on the stat sheet, but they're important plays when the interior is collapsing the pocket. Oh, and Cam Hayward, by the way, still has some juice left in the tank after signing his contract. I thought he had a good game as well. But let's transition now to the secondary, because TJ Watt did have a fumble recovery. We talked about that, but they also had 2 interceptions, and those were really big interceptions. The first one, Deshaun Elliott, I thought he was a bright spot.
That was a nice one.
The entire game was a great diving interception, and Dante Jackson should have had 2.
Yeah.
The first one, maybe he wasn't expecting. I don't know. It clanked off his shoulder pad, but the second one was huge. It was a very important huge interception. So what do you guys think about the secondary, Dave?
I thought the secondary did a fairly decent job throughout the game. I'm still curious on the touchdown play, what happened, because poor Beanie Bishop in his first NFL game, he's the lone defender out there on the side. From what I could see, unless there's a different angle from what you could see on TV, I'd love to see it. If anyone else could break it down for me, I even put it out there on X that I would love for someone to explain it to me, because he was like the only guy out there, and they had Bijan Robinson out there just on the little flare out short, even behind the line of scrimmage, and they had Pitts in the end zone, and Beanie Bishop's kind of standing in no man's land trying to defend both of them. I don't see how there could have been 2 people out there, and he would have been the only guy on that side of the field. I don't know who it was. I would assume, Bishop would have been the guy that would have been more responsible to go up, and someone else would have been deep. But I don't know. That outside of that play, which seemed like an obvious breakdown or else just a brilliant job schematically by the Falcons, outside of that, I thought the secondary was getting the job done. It was nice to see Joey Porter Jr. come back into the game. He was getting there. Dante Jackson also had that nice third, getting his hand on the ball on that one third down play to knock it away. In all, I mean, we didn't hear a lot of Minkah except when he came up and made that huge stop in the run for no gain on Robinson. Didn't hear from him a lot, but honestly, that might have been Kirk Cousins being smart and saying, let's not throw it towards number 39 at all. So bottom line is, if you're going to do that, the other guys have to step up and get it done. And I think they did. I mean, my goodness, 1 net passing yard the second half. How can you not say that they didn't get the job done?
True. Brian, thoughts on the secondary?
I hate to do this, guys. Could I ask for Kirk Cousins stats again? Because I don't remember when you said
I got it right here. So Kirk Cousins finished the day 16 of 26 for 155 yards, 6-yard average, threw 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, was sacked twice for a 59.0 rating.
And in the second half alone, he was 3 of 8 for 19 yards, an interception, sacked twice, which lost 18 yards, and a 6.3 rating in the second half.
Sorry.
You got to look at that. I'm sorry.
6.3.
There was no deep ball. The deepest ball was the touchdown to Kyle Pitts that we just talked about. They're really, I mean, they controlled this game on defense on all 3 levels. But I really feel that the defensive backs, they have upgraded. And man, I hope you watched that Carolina game. For all of you that just want to,
why the Steelers are playing.
No, but okay, watch the Carolina highlights.
Okay,
Dave, be quiet, because this is actually poignant, and I'm proud of this. Because for all of you that want to complain about the Steelers receivers and losing Deontay Johnson, who was, I don't mind saying it, a cancer in the clubhouse, and did nothing in Carolina, and you got Dante Jackson, who everybody. And look, you didn't go to Woodstock like the million people said they went to Woodstock. Only 100,000 went to Woodstock at Max Yasgur's farm in 1969. Not many of you said anything about Dante Jackson and it being a good trade. Jeff and Dave did. I'm not talking about us, but a lot of you complained about it. A lot of you complained when the Brandon Ayuk stuff did not happen just last week and how the Steelers blew it. Some of you wanted to fire Omar Khan because the Steelers traded for Dante Jackson. He looked pretty damn good in this game today. Joey Porter looked even more and more like Joey Porter. And because I worry about just, the sophomore jinx and the whole Artie Burns thing, that Artie Burns had a good rookie year. I worry about that, but he's looking more like a lockdown guy. Dante Johnson, man, he Dorothy Boyd's him. If you don't know who Dorothy Boyd is, she was Renee Zellweger's character in Jerry Maguire. He completes him. So he completes me. Dante Jackson completes me. I like everybody. I thought B.D. Bishop had a good game. I don't think he looked lost out there. No. KZ stepped up like Dave said. So no, I liked it. I was happy.
A great tackle by Beanie Bishop at the very final drive to keep I think it was Ray McLeod actually in bounds.
Kept him in bounds. That was great.
Kept the clock running. That was a good play. But I'm going to go to Joey Porter Jr., which some people in the live chat were asking, was he able to return? He was. And Mike Tomlin said any player that left the game was able to come back and return. And Dante Jackson, I guess, left for a few plays. And Joey Porter was able to come back in. Joey Porter and TJ Watt. What's that? Oh, yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mad Mike. I appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah. Go check out Mad Mike and all the work that he does over there talking. Well, he's talking about the Falcons, but if you want to see what their misery is like, go talk to him. But nonetheless, Joey Porter Jr. So you notice 2 things in the Steelers defense this game. They tried to run a TJ Watt one time. It was a tackle for loss, like -3 Bijan Robinson, and they never tried it again. How many times did they test Joey Porter Jr. with Drake London? Drake London, let me read you his stat line here.
Yes.
Drake London's stat line for receiving, he had 2 catches on 3 targets for 15 yards.
That's insane.
That's because Joey Porter blanketed him. He followed him around. He did this at the end of his rookie year. He's going to do it at the beginning of year 2. Just happens to be that I was doing some stuff around the house, listening to Bob Labriola interview Mike Tomlin before the game on the Steelers app. And I'm listening. And he said, doesn't this put a lot of stress on the number 2 guy? And Mike said, That's a great question. And you're right. He said, there's a reason we got Dante Jackson. We need a strong corner opposite Joey Porter, because if he's following someone, he's got to be able to play the right side and he's got to be able to play the left side. He said, I've watched Dante Jackson his whole career. He's capable of doing both. That's one of the reasons that we got him. So when he said that, and I'm watching the game, like, it's a pretty good trade. So for once, the Steelers, hey, like, they actually know what they're doing, which is, I think, go ahead, Bryan.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that. I'm glad you said that, because I have 2 comments to that. How many teams have 2 lockdown corners on either side? I don't know of any. You
I
really
don't know.
don't.
Dante Jackson is a lockdown.
No, I'm not saying they do. No,
he's an upgrade over what they had.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. You're misreading that.
Okay.
I'm saying you need Batman to have a Robin. And I think with cornerbacks, when you have a very good Robin, you're in good shape. So that was one of my points. The other point, I got so flummoxed there. I think I just forgot it, but in my head, it was really poignant. I'm going
that's
to
a good one, Brian.
Yeah,
I bet. All right. We have some super chats to get to here. Tyler W., I think this is a good segue into coaching. He gives us $5. Said, can we give Coach T his flowers? He adjusted at halftime. They stonewalled Atlanta. Give him 2 weeks. He'll deliver a good game plan. I agree. He had a. You know what, Bryan, you want to say something?
Yeah, I got it. I agree with that, by the way.
Okay.
So I was sorry. I stepped on your green screen there. So go ahead. Let's thank the super chat. I apologize.
Okay, sure. Let's go back to the dingo dollars from our buddy down under. He said, thank you, Bad. Let him know a bad comment about our Steelers is like a boomerang. It comes back to hit you in the rear end. Very nice. Marky D.
Well, they spell rear end different in Australia.
Yeah.
What I was going to say real quick, Jeff, now, because it was poignant and I want to bring it up. Do you think the game plan for Atlanta was to throw the ball downfield like crazy? And I think it was. And yeah, I really think they were looking to throw it downfield like crazy and couldn't.
I thought the game plan was going to be to try and run it down their throat and to use Tyler Algier more, to get Bijan Robinson in space. And I think the Steelers settled in after those first 2 drives and they weren't able to do it. That's my personal opinion.
I don't think they were able to do anything they wanted to do, but I think they wanted to go for a few home runs. But maybe it wasn't that poignant, so I'm going to shut up now.
All right, let's go to Greg. He gives us $5. I'm sorry, Greg S. He said, surprised to see Peyton Wilson this much in game 1. Very optimistic after this start. A little tease for my winners and losers segment tomorrow. I thought the rookies acclimated very well that played in this game. I was super happy to see the rookies that did play. We're talking Zach Frazier, where Peyton Wilson, I noticed Peyton Wilson on the TV. I did not notice Patrick Queen that much. I noticed Peyton Wilson in coverage, in space, shedding blocks, making tackles. He did a great job. I thought, kudos to him, and thank you all for the tips. We do appreciate it. All right, we have a few minutes left. And I want to complain about the officiating because it is god awful, guys. And you know it. We've talked about this before. It's awful when you see them. I mean, the offensive pass interference was one thing. Okay. How do you not call a face mask on Najee Harris where his helmet gets ripped off and it's right there in front of the sideline? It's not like it's in a scrum and you can't really see what's happening. And then lastly, the offsides call. Again, Dave said it. You never saw a replay down the line of scrimmage. And I think that was intentional because they know they got it wrong. And the NFL and the Fox in this case is going to cover for them. They're not going to make them look bad. That's all I'm going to say. It's an ongoing issue. The NFL is going to do nothing about it. So we're just going to have to deal with it. But Dave, any thoughts on the officiating?
Yeah. And I'm not saying, some people are like, oh, the NFL was rigged. No, it wasn't rigged. It was just inadequate. It wasn't good in all. To me, believe it or not, I might surprise you. The most egregious thing that showed you the ineptitude of the officials is that when they had a play be run, when neither team knew for sure if it was 4th down or 1st down.
Yeah.
No one knew you have to stop that. And whether you measure, whether you don't measure, you stop, you have a conversation. You have to make sure both teams are aware of what is going on. That it's your responsibility. That's not, the Steelers made a play call that almost seemed like it was fourth down, the way they lined up heavy to do that. But do the Falcons are all cheering everything? The media that were posting during the game, they didn't realize that it was actually first down. The stadium didn't. It was just, you can't do that. That just goes to show that the refs were in preseason form.
Yikes,
I mean,
man.
it was just a lot of bad stuff, but I can't say that, everything wasn't terrible. TJ got that one sack taken away because of the hands to the face. You want to know what? It was. So, and then even with the roughing the punter, yeah, that looked awful, but I could see why they called it, because Miles Killebrew was engaged with the guy and seemed that he pushed him down. Those weren't the bad calls. Plenty of the other ones were. So it's just sketchy and all. The officiating needs to be better. This is something that we talk about way too much. Not that I think that it's biased. I just think it's poor.
All right. Bryan, thoughts on the officials?
Yeah, I think that you actually missed one there, Jeff. And it was the Broderick Jones play, because Broderick Jones.
That's a good point.
I mean,
you're right. Good catch,
You're
Bryan.
right.
Even they said it on the screen. The guy didn't do anything wrong. But I want to bring up, because Dave talked a lot about, and you both talked a lot about that fourth down conundrum. I would have loved to have seen Russ Wilson or a Ben Roethlisberger, just a gray beard quarterback. Because we know Justin Fields is a veteran now. We can't say he's not a veteran, but
he's still on a rookie contract.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen a gray beard take advantage of that and go deep right there, because they were in
knowing that it was first down and not fourth.
Yes, I would have loved to have seen them do that, because they were in a goal line defense there, and you could have really stunned the hell out of everybody with that. It would have been absolutely amazing. And I brought that up during the game, that I think a Roethlisberger or a Wilson or somebody like that would have exploited it. But yeah, you cannot have that happen. I'm going to agree with you that, yeah, it's not rigged. There's nothing rigged, but there was home cooking. There was peach cobbler and grits and whatever you eat in Atlanta. I mean, there was sweet iced tea,
because Chick-fil-A sandwich,
Chick-fil-A and sweet iced tea. Yeah,
it's Sunday.
You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of home cooking officiating there. So, we would be just like Mike Tomlin said in his press conference. There's a lot you could work on your ills, and it's a lot easier to work on your ills with a W. You can forgive the officiating a whole lot more when you're working on a W. But my goodness, if they lose that game, there's two things that we're going crazy on. It's not going for the field goal and going for the touchdown on 4th and 1, which I actually called for them to go ahead, and I wanted them to go for it. So I'm not going to second guess it, because that's what I was calling for. But you'd be really complaining about the officials, and you would feel robbed, cheated, and this would have been a really ugly show, because I would have felt that the Steelers would have had a victory taken away from them.
Yeah. I do want to mention there's some people that joined us late, and they're asking about special teams, and mainly Cameron Johnston. Mike Tomlin labeled the injury as serious. I'm assuming that's probably going to be of the season-ending variety, unfortunately. Chris Boswell, in terms of special teams, what can't you say about the guy? The guy hit every single kick. He scored every single point for the Steelers. He punted the football, which, by the way, here's a quick trivia. Where did Chris Boswell go to college? You guys should know this.
I know.
Rice.
Yeah, he went to Rice. He actually has experience punting, and when he was actually he was on a roster before the Steelers. They didn't even know what team it was. It was just a preseason training camp.
No, the Houston Texans.
He was also with the New York Giants for a stint.
Oh,
too.
That's right.
So they brought him in. He actually had punted in the preseason before, because it was kind of one of those, I can kick both. Like, I can kick field goals and punt. He's just trying to find a position. And I remember writing the article for our old outlet when they signed Chris Boswell as the kicker. And I had to find a picture of him in a New York Giants uniform. And he actually was punting in a couple of those photos. So Chris Boswell is a phenomenal football player. I'll be glad to say he is a football player because he, for the second time, allotted for all the points for the Steelers in a game. The last time was the playoff game in Kansas City. What was the final score? What was that final of that game? Was it 18-16 in Kansas City, or was it that
The
playoff
Steelers' last playoff win they've ever had?
I didn't want to go there, but sure,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
18-16?
Was that what it was? That's what I thought. All right.
18 something.
Yeah,
18 victory.
Yeah, well, you got to remember they were going for the 2-point conversion, which the Steelers stopped.
Okay.
But that was the play where James Harrison got called for. They got called for holding. I think it was like Taylor Decker or someone held him, and that's when I think Travis Kelce went off in the locker room afterwards. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Let's do some final thoughts here to wrap this thing up. Dave, why don't you go first?
Oh, I have a lot of final thoughts. Okay,
I bet.
it's almost halftime of the one game here, the afternoon of the Steelers' next opponent. If you don't like this, the Steelers are only scoring their points in threes. Their opponent for next week is only scoring them in twos. They have 10 points from 2 field goals and 2 safeties.
So that's how it happened. Like I've got the game on,
Yep.
but that's how they have 10. That's insane.
Because it was 5. They had 5 at one point, and then it was 8, and now it's 10. So that's crazy. So there's a lot of different things to look at here with this game. I'm excited the Steelers did what they needed to do to get the win. One of the things I talked about with Greg Benevit on the Pittsburgh Standard Time podcast earlier this week was the Steelers defense needs to be dominant and the Steelers offense needs to be complementary. The thing that was complimentary about the Steelers offense is that they didn't turn the ball over except of a turnover on downs. That was it, where the Steelers could have kicked another field goal. Think about this. The Steelers could have had 21 points all on field goals. You take, 7 scoring opportunities. If you can improve on that and turn those in, not even just shy of half of those into touchdowns, you're talking about 30 points there, 33 points. So the offense left a lot out on the field, but it was never a point of, oh no, here's the offense. Are they even going to be able to get a first down? I think the Steelers might have had 1 3 and out when you're looking at it. Maybe 2, because I think there was another one later in the game. But they played enough of complementary football in order to get the job done. So Steelers defense, nice job. I'm looking forward to week 2. I want to see the context of this with the Steelers, with their next opponent. Even seeing how the Falcons do to see what kind of team they are. Sometimes you win a game or lose a game earlier in the season and you think, oh, that's a bad loss or that's not a very impressive win. And then how things play out in the coming weeks, you start to feel a little bit different about it. But hey, those things will play out eventually. For now, enjoy your Victory Monday. Make sure you try to get a T-shirt from Jeff Hartman. All that good stuff. Breathe it in. All these good things. We'll have Game Ball on the website here later this evening. All these wonderful things that we can talk about because the Steelers were victorious.
All right, Bryan, final thoughts.
All right. I might not be the most professional all the time, but one thing that I pride myself on doing, and I think one of the reasons he's kept me along this long, is the fact that I know how to make Jeff Hartman laugh. And I'm going to do it again right here. And I don't even have to say much. All I have to say is George Costanza's wallet.
What about how big it
What's
is?
in George? How big it is, but why is it so big?
He keeps all those coupons and receipts and
receipts.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start counting receipts. And look, I don't care what you say about me or whether you disagree with my takes because you fan the way you want to fan. I have no problem with that. But I took a little heat in the live chat for saying that Justin Fields was the hot hand. And they're like, no way is 150 some yards a hot hand. No, got to understand. He led them to 5 field goals and also what could have been, 6 field goals and what could have been a 7th field goal, but they went for it. So he led them to scoring. And we haven't seen this kind of leadership since Ben Roethlisberger really left. And look, stop rewriting history. 3 games of Mason Rudolph was not enough to talk about how awesome he was. You're talking about how awesome this guy was. He's not. But I am going to say this. I'm going to count receipts on this because you have a guy that did not know he was starting until late Thursday, and he still didn't know he was starting until this morning, even though they started proceeding like he was. But come hell or high water, man, Russell Wilson was going to do everything he could to play. And I appreciate that. But I appreciate what you got out of Justin Fields today. And I appreciate how Mike Tomlin talked about how he is, and I said this, I will take heat for this, I know, because I called him using a grandpa word. I took that off of Big Bang Theory, but he uses grandpa words by calling him a steady Eddie. And I don't think I've heard anyone said that since 1946. But Justin Fields was, after he calmed down, he was ready to lead that team. So I think right now you've got to appreciate the fact that we knew going in, and I said this at the beginning of the show, that this team was going to have to win some ugly games. I don't think this game was that ugly. On offense, we saw better offensive production in a week one game. I think the last time the week one production was this good, and it wasn't that great, was 2020 when the Steelers Monday Night Football against the Giants. They put up points in that game, but it wasn't perfect. So for anybody here that wants your team to be perfect, wants your wide receiver crew to be perfect, wants everything to be perfect, know that perfect is not real. But being real is perfect. And by God, the Pittsburgh Steelers are a real team.
Okay. He's a steady Eddie, you see. He's a steady Eddie out there.
You see?
Where's that paper boy at? Okay, anyways.
Give me a sarsaparilla.
My final thoughts are going to be abridged compared to the prior two. So I'm going to ask you a quick question. Dave and Bryan, have you ever had a season where you go back and you look at, okay, seasons is almost ending, you're in week 16, 17, etc. And you look back early in the season, like, man, that was such a bad loss. Shouldn't even count. Has that ever happened? Or I'm sorry, that was such a bad win. Like, they didn't play well. Shouldn't even count. When was the last time you did that?
Never.
All that's doing is carrying you to the next week. It doesn't.
You don't complain about wins. You might look back and say, damn, that loss, like that one got away from us. That should have been a win. Who cares? They win the game. And
2 a.m., Jeff, 2 a.m.
Play to win the game. I'm sure Dave has that soundbite somewhere on the board.
Oh, it's on the Schofield brain, not this one.
So, but nonetheless, the Steelers find a way to win 18-10 on the road, week one. Great job. Let's see if they can stack wins, as Mike Tomlin says in week two when they go to Denver. Make sure you're following us at SteelCurtainNetwork.com for all your Steelers news. Also on our podcast platform. Remember, a lot of our shows like My Let's Ride, you want to hear it all, you got to go find us there. Steel Curtain Network. Look out for Let's Ride tomorrow. Got the winners and losers. Bryan and Coach KT Smith, the Here We Go show coming up. The Scobros will be on Tuesday. It's a lot of exciting stuff coming up. And again, SteelCurtainNetwork.com. That does it for a post-game show. Steelers are 1-0. Doesn't matter how you do it. They did it. Good job, guys. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Woo.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.